Hey everyone, this is Zan, and welcome to the Dominion 6 Bone Grinding Trap tutorial. And we're going to dive straight into the battle because it is pretty cool on 2x speed.
Call an ambulance! Call an ambulance! But not for me!
And we're going to fast forward a little bit more here. At this point, the mages are off script. And voila, Bone Grinding Trap set and completed. And so here are the results for the trap. I think it worked pretty good. So going into the background, I'm playing Sarmatia, I'm fighting two other players. My armies are kind of out in the boonies, fighting these other two players, and Statis attacks me somewhere very far from my forces. And so I kind of gather up my researching mages and test until I come up with some sort of duct tape solution to cause as much damage as possible to their armies with what few mages I had. Once I found this awesome trap, I kind of pleaded with the player to not attack me, but unfortunately the siege happened, and here we are. So let me show you the spell real quick. This is Bone Grinding. It is a very high research spell. It requires Death 7 to cast. It affects the entire battlefield and has a high fatigue cost. And although it does require Death Gems, it only requires one Death Gem, and a Death 7 mage can use a lot of Death Gems. So we see here that it is going to do 3 armor negating damage, and notably it is not magical damage, meaning it can be reduced by spells like Mistform and Body Ethereal, or negated by spells like Twist Fate, which is pretty cool. Now, going into the actual spell again, after it does its damage, it's also going to do a magic resistance check to cause the limp affliction on your opponents, and then another check to cripple them. And both of these afflictions mainly are going to just either reduce the stats slightly, but also reduce the combat speed of the units heavily, meaning a caster far in the back casting this is going to literally slow down everyone that is on their way to kill him, which is kind of convenient and, as you saw, useful. Now, explain the trap itself. Knowing the spell is non-magical, I had my mages cast Body Ethereal first before entering the Communion. I mentioned this as a trick in my Patala guide that heavily uses Astral Mages, that if you don't immediately need to cast some big Communion spell early on, you can get some value out of your Communion slaves first by casting 1 or 2 rounds of Body Ethereal and then becoming a Communion slave. And it's worth noting that I did have a Crystal Amazon in this army, and I did mess up because I should have given that Amazon air gems and had them cast Mistform. But unfortunately, in gathering this whole plan together, I had her cast Body Ethereal, which is not bad, but was ultimately unnecessary, as I had a bunch of other Astral Mages. And I can't remember my reasoning exactly, but I do know that I needed exactly 8 slaves for this plan to work, and that is why the Crystal Amazon ended up being a slave and not a master casting Mistform. Now, the Inaris themselves are wielding Skull Staves. They then cast Power of the Spheres to bump up their death magic even more, reduce the fatigue, and kind of reach the level to cast the spell in the first place. So Twist Fate is going to stop the first instance of bone grinding that does go through Ethereal for themselves, and notably for their Communion slaves. Super freaking useful. And then the fun begins. So I personally haven't used bone grinding too much in my Dominion tenure, I guess, but I do know Lucid, who loves playing Necromantic Nations, has talked about the subject before, and I do remember him saying specifically that one cast of bone grinding often doesn't do too much. However, once you get to around 3 casts of it, humans are in some real danger. And so, of course, I settle on double that and do 6 casts, and then kind of hope that the Skelly spam that these high death mage Inaris is going to do, especially with so many corpses on the field that they just made, I was kind of hoping that that would wipe out what's left. And I got pretty lucky here. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys enjoy a quick tutorial and showcase of little bone grinding traps. I, for one, will be extra terrified of ever attacking a Saramation fort in the late game, or maybe even Celeria. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. Remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you all next time.